You're live, it says. Where are we? All right. G'day, welcome back, everybody. Doing the live a bit earlier than usual. Just got a few other things to do later this evening, so thought I'd get a start about an hour or so earlier than usual. Anybody that's on can just, I don't know, go back and watch it later on if they feel like they missed anything. But there's just a few questions that have come through, so I'm going to look to try to give some answers to these as well as I can. Where are we? Yeah, and just dive straight in. So it might not take as long as what I was thinking. I was planning on doing something different on this live, but a bunch of questions come through, so I figured I'll try and speak to these first in this live instead. So these questions have come up on some of the recent videos that have been posted. Hopefully the audio is coming through. I'm not sure if it is. Green lights are on the microphone, so it should be. And there's a bit of a mix. Some of them are in relation to the Navy SEALs Buds class 234, which is re-uploading some of the videos that were previously only available for members, channel members, which I don't have anymore. So let's get into this. First one here, and some of them are in regards to just other videos, so I can't remember all the videos that where these questions have popped up from. But rather than replying to them in there, I thought I'll just try and give a verbal on here. Apologies to those supporters that usually look to jump on at 1900 hours or 7 o'clock, because that's when I usually do it. But as I said, just starting a bit earlier for this evening's one. First one, is there a classification or distinction for candidates who pass selection in New Zealand / Australia, IG or IE, sorry, pass, excellence, distinction, or something similar? So the short answer to that is no. Not during my time anyway, and as far as I know, they don't have those sort of distinctions for candidates who complete or pass selection. Not even at the end of a cycle. Where they did have, I suppose, a distinction would be after, like once you're in, and if you go on to do other courses like a sniping course or whatever other course where they might have student of merit or top shot or whatever the case might be, there would be those sorts of things. But yeah, not for selection, which is what this question here was for. So not that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty sure they still don't have anything like that now. You either pass or you fail. Second one, you've mentioned before that you think people who are a serving member of another Tier 1 SF unit should do selection for another Tier 1 unit if they decide they want to go and serve with another unit. Yep, I have said that, and that's still what I feel. Then they've got here, carrying on with that, do you disagree with the SBS guy, the Special Boat Service guy, who I mentioned was an operator in the Australian Regiment during my time there, even though he didn't do the Australian selection? From the just taking it at face value, I I disagree with anybody. Like I said, I think anybody coming from another SF unit, Tier 1 SF unit, and they want to join another one, I think they should do the selection for that country, for that unit, wherever it is. In the case of the individual and whatever was agreed between, I think I've mentioned this before as well. I don't know what the details were, what the conversations were, what that looked like, what that sounded like, what that felt like, but I assume it felt like a good arrangement, a good agreement for SASR and the former SBS operator who had already been through an arduous SF selection process, as far as I'm aware, deployed on several operations before he came over and had a wealth of knowledge and experience. So I guess the trade-off for the regiment was being able to leverage this particular experienced, seasoned operators' knowledge, expertise, etc., and bringing that into the regiment, which, my opinion, could only help. Obviously, he earned the trust of the operators in the unit as well, and gave an incredible, from what I've heard anyway, an incredible account of himself during during every operation, as far as I'm aware, and in particular during the operation where Ben Robert Smith received the Victoria Cross. So, yeah, I got no issues with him and his achievements and what he's done, but just taking it at face value in terms of my thoughts, being asked for my thoughts, yeah, I think they should. And I think I mentioned to the person that asked this question, not because I had to. Like, there's plenty of people that have gone to another, that have been a tier one operator in a country, and I won't give their names, but I'll give some examples soon. And then have gone over to join another tier one unit and have had to go through the whole selection process again. And as far as I'm aware, examples of that is the UK. Like, the UK, regardless of where you come from, NZ, as an example, guys that join the unit here in NZ, if they want to go join 2-2, or say maybe the SBS, I don't know of any Kiwi guys that have gone over to join SBS. Maybe there has. The people that I've heard of that I know typically have gone over to the UK to join 22 SAS. They've all done selection again. They've all gone through that process, or done the UK's selection, which is that long 6-month process, as opposed to the 8 to 9 day, 8, 9, or 10 day. I don't know exactly what it is these days. New Zealand selection, then the 8 to 10 month or 12-month cycle of training. They've done that, so it's different to the UK's. We've spoken about that, but they've gone over and done the UK selection. I don't personally know of any Australian regiment guys that have gone over to do the UK selection with the intent of joining 22 or SBS. Maybe there has, but there's definitely been Kiwis that have gone over, done the selection for UK after having already been a badged member in the NZ unit. And there was at least one other badged NZ SAS operator who went over and went through the whole Australian selection and cycle again, and then got badged in the Australian regiment before me. From what I understand, that guy failed his first attempt on the 3.2 kilometer run, but then, yeah, just trained the house down and went back as soon as he could on the next one, and smashed it, from what I've heard. So, yeah, it's not because I had to do it or because these others have had to do it. I just think that there's no guarantee that anybody will, just because you've passed um, one country's process to get to where you want to get to. I don't think it guarantees anything. Mindset wise, you're probably going to have a much stronger advantage, I would imagine. But again, the drive still needs to be there, in order to go and serve there. If that drive and that commitment, that desire, that genuine desire, the passion, whatever you want to call it, isn't there, you may very well quit, just like anybody else. So that's my take on that. Long-winded answer. I personally don't disagree with regards to the SBS guy based on his history and whatever the conversations were and their agreement. Overall, though, my personal thought is anybody looking to join another SF unit, tier one or otherwise, regardless of where you've come from, you should have to go and do that country's selection, just like the UK has. So I like that. As far as I know, anyway, they hold the line. They set the standard. The creators, um, the pioneers of that SF space, and the way that they, yeah, continue to hold that standard before people can go and serve there is great. Does that mean that it's harder than in other countries? I don't know. I haven't done it, right? I haven't done the UK one, and I won't go and speak for what people that I know of who have done the NZ and the UK one. I won't speak for what they've said about it. That's for them to speak about it, I guess. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. That's my take. Oh, sorry. Super Honne 12. My live stream came through as I'm about to walk into Pack and Save. No questions. Maybe one with your fitness at the level it is yourself as retired. Would you consider doing an ultra marathon? Yeah, 100%. So this year is the intent and plan. Well, plans is to do more endurance focused stuff. A lot of longer runs, a lot of longer pack stuff, getting out and about with a few bits and pieces. And what do people call it? I'll just call it going for a pack march, but some people might call it going for a stomp or a hike or whatever, and maybe just stopping along the way. So we'll see how the year plays out with regards to that. G'day from Queensland, folks. Awesome. William Keith, good to hear from you. Thank you guys for stopping by if you're listening. So I'm just trying to run through some Q&A stuff that's come through. Hence why I've started a bit earlier. We've got a few other things to do this evening. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question enough. Yeah, that's my take. If a UK, so if the question came up, not that it has, but if the question came up around, do I think somebody coming from the UK wanting to join the NZ unit or the Australian unit should have to do the selection? Yeah, my personal take would be the same. Um, they are very different. Like the selection processes are very different. You know, you've heard Phil Campion talk about the UK one, and several other experienced 2 SAS operators. There's been a few that have spoken about, although I'm not an experienced operator in the New Zealand regiment, because I was never badged there, but I have been fortunate to complete the and pass the selection, and then get right to the 11th hour of what would have been the badging ceremony had I, but I wasn't badged. So that side of things, I can speak from that perspective. And the New Zealand and UK one, from what I've heard, are very different. NZ in Australia is very, very different. Not to mention, obviously, the climate and the environment as well. Um, yeah, so I think there definitely doesn't matter where you are between NZ, Australia, UK. If any one of them wanted to go, I think they should have to do the selection. But as far as I'm aware, I'm not sure that I don't know what the case is these days. So whatever works for them, they're going to choose and do whatever works for them. Um, yeah, and then the results are the results. And in the case of the SBS guy, gone over, changed over, joined the Australian regiment. Is from what I've heard, he's not let the regiment down at all or ever. So, which is pretty awesome. Um, that's that one. Third question. Oh, hang on. Sorry. My so, hey Joe, how are you? Good. Any thoughts on the recent events regarding the US and their so-called snatch and grab operation of the Venezuelan president? Yep, it just shows, I suppose. Without, I haven't looked into that. I've just seen some of the headlines. I read a little bit on it, in and around that particular president's support of drugs and all that sort of stuff, and the oil situation and things like that. I mean, that's just been happening for a long time, eh? Why they've waited till now to act on it and do something about it, I have no idea. But it just shows, for me, my thoughts. It just shows how much power and resources and ability the US has, to be able to just go into another country, snatch the president and the wife. I think, if I heard or read correctly, and just extract them. Imagine what they could do anywhere they like. So I guess we'll learn more and hear more as it goes, but I haven't been digging into it. That's about as much as I've got. Where are we? Asking from a military standpoint, not a political one. Oh, a military standpoint. Sorry, I just seen that now. Well, I haven't looked at or seen. All I know is that there's massive resources committed to it by air. Not sure about sea. I assume so, but air and land, and that there seemed like and sounds like there would have been. I'm just guessing here again, but I would imagine there would have been a heck of a lot of rehearsals done, intelligence gathered, um, and more rehearsals to be able to execute something like that, and get out of there. So I don't know if there's been any casualties on the American side or anything like that. I don't know how many casualties on the Venezuelan side. So maybe we'll hear more. Maybe people know more than I do about it. But from a military perspective, just shows how much military power they have and ability. Um, just bowl on up to another country and execute your plan that you've been rehearsing and do what they need to do. I've heard snippets of Trump speaking, like, they were prepared for if he managed to get into a panic room or a safe room, and they were armed or had tools and equipment to be able to crack that thing open. Apparently, they had dimensions and information around what type of setup it was, should the president and that have made it into that room. So, yeah, I don't think it was a flying by the seat, seat of their pants approach. There was, yeah, definitely a lot of groundwork and intelligence gathering taking place along the way. So people serving their roles, support workers, maybe CIA, all that sort of stuff. Who knows? But that's my limited input into it without having looked into anything else, in regards to it at this stage. Where are we? Third one, is resilience something you're born with or something you learn? I definitely think it's something you learn. Um, maybe all of us, I suppose, to a degree, are born with a level of resilience, but we need things to bring it out of us. Or at least I know I have anyway. I do. If it's something you already learned personally, how did you learn it? I'm still learning it. um, in terms of resilience, I don't think anybody gets to a stage whereby they're resilient enough to take on anything. Challenges comes in all forms, and everybody's different. And when you haven't experienced something, or when you're experiencing something for the first time, and if it's difficult or challenging, for any of us, myself included, at the top of that list, needs to apply what resilience I have learnt over the years, and then try to endure and be consistent, and adapt and be flexible and all those sort of things to try to navigate my way through whatever that challenge is. And with that, if I or we can stay that course, this is just my 2 cents take, then you develop and build or strengthen that resilience that I think is already there for each of us. It just um, needs a catalyst to get it to start to go, and then we need to start trying to work through those difficulties as best we can to stay in that fight for as long as we can, or until we achieve what it is that we want to achieve. So when I'm talking about I'm still experiencing that now and still learning resilience, like, although I love jumping on YouTube these days and just doing in my own little space, doing what I do, and learning new things, there's challenges that come with it. But leveraging the resilience that I've been fortunate to learn, and I'll try and share some examples of those in other areas, that flows into this. Because at the end of the day, my thoughts personally, this is way easier than the other physical and mental stuff that I did previously, and even same with other jobs that I've had. And that was probably some of the stuff that I was going to speak about in this live, but all the questions sort of come through. So um, yeah, the resilience piece of it, I think everybody's still learning it, and learning to go through it. And how do we learn it? If it's something you learn personally, how did you learn it? Again, like I said, I'm still learning it with YouTube and the frustrations. And although there's not that many, to be fair, like it's not that hard, eh? Just sitting down talking to the camera. Although that was uncomfortable, it's feeling much more comfortable these days. Um, y- and that's due to just trying to put the reps in, and staying as consistent and disciplined as I can with it, getting a routine. So how did I learn it? I think a combination, for me anyway, and I assume for everybody else, combination of things from a young age. Um, a combination of work, discipline from my mum, more work and more work. So what I mean by that, for me personally, the resilience to bounce back, with regards to finding jobs hard. There was a number of, I suppose, physically labor intensive type jobs that I found hard. And little did I know that exposure and that work, and to a degree being forced, well, not to a degree, being forced to do that work by my mum, bless her, even though I hated it and didn't want to do it, her having enough belief and faith in me, and at the same time, I guess, loving me enough to say, no, you're doing it anyway. She knew that would pay for me. She knew that would pay dividends down the road. Even though my mum was, in some terms, some might say old for her generation, but young. I think she's young. She had me at 21, so I think that's a young age. Um, and so her having enough, I suppose, forethought down the road to understand that she needs to teach me as best she could. She needed to be the mum and the dad, and be firm but fair, hard on me when she needed to, discipline me when she needed to. It wasn't always the best. I know I spent quite a few times saying some not very nice things about my mum when some of that discipline would reach my ears or my body. um, but it definitely paid off, and being forced to do work um, from a young age, and then carrying that on, helped me understand and realize that, man, I can put up with and endure, and get through some challenging things. And that definitely helped down the track. Her forcing me to take up and do martial arts when I was young as well, even though she took me along to watch my older cousins. I think I spoke about this a while ago. And it was cool watching them. And she asked me, okay, did I want to do it? And I was like, straight away, I was like, nah. And she goes, well, you're doing it anyway. I was like, well, what was the point of asking me? Um, all of those things eventually got to a point that I enjoyed them, or that I felt comfortable enough with them. So martial arts got to a point where I enjoyed it. Work got to a point where I enjoyed it because of the financial reward, but also the fact that I could see where I was now, and looking back and seeing where I'd come from and how hard and miserable I thought it was, when really it was nothing. It was easy. So I think we're all learning those things continually. And same with, excuse me, social media, or whatever work that we're into now, or whatever courses that you might be doing, education wise. those are places where we all learn that resilience. At least that's my thoughts and part of what's helped me anyway. Not sure if that makes sense, but hopefully it does make sense in my own head. But maybe I'm not just spitting it out my face or out my mouth as well as what I could. Where are we? Uh, The US defense budget has been increased to 1.5 trillion. Holy heck. Oh, real. Cheers, My Soap 23. And again from My Soap, our entire NZ budget for 2025 was only about 7 billion. Our defense budget was 1 billion, I believe. Wow, that's crazy. Lemon Mop 9332. Hey man, whenever you can respond to this question, please take your time. I'm currently in the infantry 3rd year Australian Army and am starting to feel jaded. What are some points that would benefit my mindset? Oh, wow. What a cool question. Starting to feel jaded. What are some points that would benefit my mindset? I've never been asked that question before. What a cool question. Sorry to hear that you're feeling a bit jaded. 3rd year, much respect. Thank you, bro, and appreciation with regards to your service in the ADF and 3rd year infantry. It's no small task, bro. So appreciate you. Um, Jaded, man. I think that's a hard question for me because I never got to a stage where I felt jaded in the military. I got annoyed and frustrated with some of the Green Army stuff for sure, but I never felt I never felt jaded personally. Like I loved it. Um, all these years later, I still love it. Like have an appreciation for it. If if anything happened, and if a call up happened, or if there was a call that went out, hey, emergency, whatever, like I would, I would, I would still put up my hands. So it's interesting. Jaded. Wow. Let me come back to that, bro. I wish I had some um, magic answers to give to you. The one thought that just keeps coming to my mind is the fact of how much I really enjoyed my time in the military, NZ and Australia. Again, I've done a couple of videos so far about the NZ, no particular order series. So I won't go into that. But man, if you're not enjoying it, that's a big that's probably one of the main things for me. Um, all well and good and easy to say, find something that you enjoy and get after it. But I never knew that I would enjoy doing YouTube, as an example. Had no idea that I would enjoy it. Um, so that wasn't something that was forefront of mind for me to go, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to find what I enjoy now and I'm going to go and do it. If anything, I enjoyed and still enjoy training. So people probably thought that I was going to choose that and maybe start another gym or do more coaching or whatever. But nah, because a number of people that I've been took the time to coach over the years. I just got a bit hoha with them, with just a bit flimsy with regards to some of their commitment and things like that, or finding excuses and reasons. I was like, man, I just had a gut full of these people. I'm just going to do my own thing. Um, I'll try and come back to that, man. I really wish I had some good answers for you. Sorry to hear that you're feeling jaded. It mostly comes from a place involving other diggers being lazy. Oh, okay. And I enjoy the job, but others can definitely make tasks worse off. Oh, all right. Well, hey, that's different. I could probably speak to a little bit of that because I have an opportunity to catch up with my sons from time to time who are serving in the infantry here in NZ, and maybe they vent a little bit. I won't go into details or anything like that, but that the army sounds very different here in NZ from the army that I left, the army that I joined. Um, they are allowed to. Apparently, it's been signed off. Anybody can have a beard, although I think battalion has snuck in their own little caveat. A minute has to be submitted. Anyway, that aside, there seems to be from time to time when my sons and some of their friends who I've met speak with me in and around is a group of people that are just there for the paycheck, and there are a group of soldiers that are there that are hearty, that want to do the job, that aren't lazy. Like sounds like you're not. You're wanting to do the job. You're there for a purpose and reason, but there are people there that are just for a paycheck. Um, Only real advice, really, at that stage that I gave to them was in and around. Well, there's other places within the Defence Force, NZ and Australia, where you can get away from those lazy paycheck collecting type service men and women, because there are servicemen and women that are just there for the paycheck, in my opinion, can't pass the minimum standards, still progress, still get promoted, still, and they're happy about it. Um, but they're not respected. They're not really well liked, and they carry a chip on their shoulder for not being able to complete those things, but still thinking that they're entitled enough to have certain things or that they should get certain things. So there's places within the military you're still going to maybe have. I never came across people personally, and I'm talking more in the SF space, that were lazy because they get found out pretty quick. And then there's some, there's some strong conversations, and then the daily renewable contract always comes up as well. So that's probably the main option, in terms of when I've spoken to, not only my sons but other people. Now, whether or not that's for them or whether or not that's for you, that's a completely different, story, because not everybody joins the military to go the SF route. A number of people, maybe like yourself, I don't know your story, but maybe like yourself, you joined the infantry because of the strong digger history within the ADF and the incredible things that the diggers have done there for the ADF. And maybe you went in thinking that, yeah, that's the legacy that I want to be a part of. These are the groups of people. I found my tribe, and we're going to work hard, we're going to play hard, and we're going to do what we need to do. And I'm sure that is for the most part what happens, but it can be draining and it can wear on you when you've got people that are lazy, that seem to be, and when it starts to feel like you're surrounded and it seems to be that they're just there for that sort of collect the paycheck type thing and they don't really care. Yeah, I can see how you would be jaded. But I think that's probably partly why I never felt jaded. Um, I was in with older men, who, to me, looked really good at their job, who expected a lot from us. We had really strict instructors who set a great example. Um, they didn't. They never banged on about. So my sergeants, as an example, never banged on about the fact that they were coming first and beating us in PT. Just me as an 18-year-old, then turning 19, and looking at them and seeing them kicking my backside was enough for me to go, man, I need to pull my finger out. These guys are, which I realize are still young now, but at that time I thought they were old, right? It's like these guys are early 30s, mid 30s, and they're thrashing me. I should be at least up front with them, or I should be ahead. But I couldn't. I was always getting beaten. So I could understand how that could be jaded. Maybe that's why during my time I never felt that jaded. Well, I never felt jaded at all. Plus I knew where I wanted to go, within the military, and just kept working until I got there. So again, that probably doesn't help that much. It sucks that you got, yeah, surrounded. Well, I don't know if you're surrounded, but that you've got some people there that sound like they're lazy. But it just goes to show it doesn't matter where you are, eh? Doesn't matter which defence force, New Zealand, Australia. There's going to be some bloody slackers that are there that just are there to collect the paycheck, are there to happily go on LDs or light duties, and avoid all the field exercises, and look to always, they somehow magically always have an injury when it's time for work to be done in regards to an infantry perspective. And it makes you scratch your head, or it made me scratch my head and wonder, why would you join a combat role like infantry if all you want to do is stay in camp? Yeah, you should have joined another job whereby you don't need to be in a combat role. Again, that probably doesn't help. I'm just looking at those questions on the side there. I'll come to those. Sad to hear. I enjoy the job, but others can definitely make tasks worse off. Yeah. The last part that I'll say to that, lemon lemon mop, is that no matter where you are, I think that's always going to happen. But as long as you're enjoying the work and you're enjoying and feeling like you're contributing positively, that's the main thing. So if you're still enjoying where you are, work as an infantryman, awesome. I'm not going to say infantry person, it's infantryman. Bloody hell. Yeah, the female side of things and some of what I've heard is a whole different conversation, which I won't get into here. But the job as an infantryman, it's a hard job. It's meant to be a hard job. It's not for everybody. Some muppets, some lemons do bloody make it harder for those that do want to be there. But if you are still enjoying it, which is great to hear, sounds like you are, then just stick at it. Otherwise, the other option, in my experience, to really get away from, I never really encountered. I can't picture anybody in my time in the Australian Regiment that was just there to collect the paycheck. And guys that I was lucky enough to serve with anyway, Like they were, they were there keen as wanting to do the job, even when they were injured, even if their arm was in a cast, even if their leg was in a brace. You'd see them at the gym trying to work and rehab and get themselves better, so that they could get rid of those things and get back into the job as soon as they could. If there were jobs that needed to be done in and around the lines because they couldn't go and do them, like they were cleaning, they were sweeping, they were helping the storemen with whatever they were doing, bits and pieces in and around their troop that needed to happen, while guys were doing the work. They would go and collect the ammunition from the magazines, bring it down, help clean the ranges. That like they were still, um, just proactively doing stuff, and I never. y- It's harder. You don't really. I never really came across that in an infantry battalion. More people just quite happy to go on light duties and avoid jobs and just collect that money coming through each fortnight. So anyway, thanks for giving me a little bit more context on that. Oh, sorry, you've just got some stuff in here. I get that. I'm not the SF type. Yep, all good. Yeah, and when they do go field, they slack off and make your life way extra out bush. Yeah, 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 100%. No, it helps. Thanks for the extra insight. No worries. Thank you. That extra info that you gave was really helpful. I guess I could look into the SF. Got to be a different breed though. Well, funnily enough, Lemon, was it Lemon Mop? One of the guys, Chris Kumaro, who I interviewed a while ago when I was still doing the Epic Aotearoa podcast. I think those interviews and stuff are still up because I don't have access to that YouTube account. So whatever happens with that. um, but he stumbled upon the SF side of things when he was already in the army. I think from memory, in my time, they used to kick around in these dark navy blue type overalls and have a beret and have their boots on. That was sort of dress of the day for those guys. And I only observed that when I was on cycle. Um, Otherwise, if they were traveling around going to other camps, then they'd be in their uniform. But he remembers, or if I remember correctly, he was talking about he's in the mess one time. He's seen those guys walk through. He didn't know who they were, but they were in the overalls. They had beards, longer hair than everybody else, and they rocked up. And I think he asked one of his mates who that was, and I think one of his friends said to him, "Oh, don't look at them. Don't worry about those guys." And it's like, who are they? And I think somebody told him, "Oh, that's those are SAS," and he didn't know what that meant. And so they told him. He's like, "Oh." And then it was just from there. So he wasn't, I suppose, maybe the SF type. That was never in his playbook. Once he saw them, and then they spoke a little bit about it, what they knew, that was enough to just trigger him. And then and then he went there and did selection. Pretty sure there's some other people too. I'll have to, maybe they'll come to me later on about other guys that I've spoken with where the SAS just wasn't even on in their playbook. They hadn't heard about it before they joined the army. They joined the army and then they heard about it and then they went, oh yeah, I'll go and see what that's like. So but yeah, hey, you know yourself better than I do or anybody else. And if you feel that you're not the type, then awesome. Ka koe, stay up to you. Stay where you are with regards to infantry, and it's great to hear that you still enjoy it. Apart from those muppets that are bloody making life more challenging, which is disappointing. Um, this one, how do you quieten those negative thoughts when they try to enter your mind? Uh, just depends on what the job is, eh? So this question, if I'm assuming, is in around selection or cycle, because that's everybody has a negative thoughts. Even though I've shared, I don't recall ever thinking about quitting. Depending on what it is and what you're going into, my take is what you get. Well, as best you can, know what it is that you're getting yourself into. Um, might sound a bit cliche-ish because there are a lot of people that come onto selection, and you've seen it in different documentaries. Oh yeah, I know this is going to be hard. This is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done. I've heard people on selections, even on the NZ ones, saying when they're asked, how did you prepare for the selection, and people have said, "Oh, you can't prepare for the selection." I disagree with that. You 100% can, and you 100% need to. You need to prepare for selection physically, um, and I think with that, doing those hard things again physically, because it sucks to get up and train early in the morning or go again late at night, especially if you're working full time. Like that's it's miserable a lot of the time, and I think I've spoken about that other times too. It wasn't exciting or it wasn't a joy to get up early in the morning and go train while everybody else is having to sleep, and then finish that, get cleaned up. and then go report to work and then do PT again with your platoon or your company, then carry on with work after you get cleaned up, carry on with your day's work, eat, etc. And then at the end of the day, know that I've got another training session to do, or I imposed another training. Like yeah, it wasn't exciting. Some days, don't get me wrong, it was awesome. Felt good. I felt energized, felt like, yep, today I'm going to have a good training session. And even on some of those days, I didn't do as well as what I thought I would. So I think that's a normal part. But if I didn't get up and go, if I didn't establish and maintain that routine and that structure and whatever it is you want to call it, and just get up and go and do that stuff, come time for selection, when my body's sore and when I'm thinking about, oh man, I'm not doing very well, or I'm going too slow, I need to go faster, or the directing staff don't like me, or I don't know if I'm going to pass anyway, so I might as well just quit. These are just some of the voices that I think everybody has at some point, um, in their mind. In terms of, for me, it was more around feeling like, uh, I don't know how well I'm doing. I'm not getting any feedback from the staff. So am I just wasting my time? Are they just stringing me along because I'm a young 20-year-old and they think, oh, he's too young anyway, but we'll see how he goes and then we'll just tell him he's got to come back? Like all of that sort of stuff, no guarantees, the uncertainty of it all. Um, how did I quieten those things? I quietened them by the mindset that I had before I went on selection. So uh, I think when I spoke about that in a couple of recent videos, just a verbal diary or verbal diarrhea, some people might call it instead. I was talking about the ways in which, before I even stepped foot onto the start line of selection, where I thought I would come off. Sorry, not where I thought I would come off, where I thought the only way I would come off selection was if I badly injured myself and couldn't continue, if the directing staff removed me, so they physically, which they do, and they have that right to, if you're not performing or if you're too slow or whatever in terms of meeting the timings and the distances and all that sort of stuff. And or the third one was if I died. So badly injured, directing staff said not up to scratch. See you later. Thanks for coming, but see you later. And or if I died. So for me, anyway, having those three things firmly ingrained in my head, which just stayed in my head while I was out training, um, I personally didn't find that I needed to try to quieten a lot of voices, other than not even quieten them, but other than knowing and acknowledging, yeah, I'm sore, but this has been done before. It's been done by a number of people that serve in the unit now in NZ and again in Australia. I had the same sort of thoughts, and it will continue to be done by those that want it bad enough. So, basically for myself, just telling myself, just shut up and just keep going, um, until one of those three things happen. And if none of those three things happen, or then I have no excuse. I just need to keep going. Um, yeah, probably not the greatest answer, but that's all I've got. If I look at things now in terms of quieting the negative thoughts when they try to enter your mind, plenty of negative thoughts with regards to YouTube. So something completely different from a selection perspective or a military perspective. But I look to try to apply to a degree a similar sort of mindset or a learned mindset that have accumulated over time, including growing up military and then all the other work that I've been blessed and fortunate to do prior to deciding to just do social media or YouTube full time. And a lot of that is just understanding again and knowing that there's going to be people that just really dislike my content. There's going to be people that hate the fact that I stop the video so often doing a reaction. There's going to be people that um, don't like my opinion or my view, particularly around stuff that I did to do with Ben Robert Smith, which YouTube hasn't gotten back to me, and they've blocked those videos that I did on the ABC report, the bias report, the reaction that I did. It had like probably close to 10,000 views or whatever each of those, part one, part two of the video. Um, and now they're just blocked. They just sit in my um, bloody YouTube. They haven't deleted them. They've just blocked them, so they're not able to be seen by anybody. So why that's happened, I don't know. But people with more say in what I'm allowed to show on my channel or not have deemed that they need to block it like that. So that sort of stuff, negative thoughts, been pretty pissed off about that. To be fair, but also acknowledging that I'm biased, and there's a number of people that don't like my bias that I have with regards to the Defence Force or the regiment or whatever. And man, I can either let that eat me up, or I can just, those that go off on a bit of a rant and feel like they need to say whatever it is that they need to say to get off their chest towards me, I just put a laughing face and then just move on. Or I think there's a couple recently, I just put a laughing face and put Happy New Year, bro. So that was on uh, the the video that I did a while ago, which I think probably helped kick off this channel with regards to putting on there. I can't remember the title, that I completed both the New Zealand and the Australian essay selection, and which course was harder. Um, and then somebody put in there, I think there's been a few of those. Surprise, surprise, the Kiwi says the New Zealand selection was harder. So I don't know if they listened to it all. Um, doesn't matter. They said a few other things and just put a laughing face and Happy New Year, bro. So you can, just learn to laugh at that stuff, or you could get consumed by it and then start smashing away on the keyboard and punching out a long as nasty reply back to them. Um, yeah, so all of that sort of stuff, quietening those voices, I think equally, not just the negative thoughts that you plant in your own mind or that I might plant in my own mind, but also those negative thoughts that come from externally, from outside, and how you approach and deal with those things. I might have approached or dealt with those things differently 10, 15, 20 years ago. I probably would have, compared to where I am now. Um, no doubt I would have, but hopefully that's just a sign of a little bit more maturity each year with regards to when those challenges come. So the negative thoughts don't stop, and they don't just start, as we all know, in a selection environment or the military. They happen in everyday life. They've happened for me. So that the person here that's put this question down didn't give a military context or anything. I've just used military selection as one. I've used social media as another one. I could use, parenting as another for me. There's been some low times, some dark times, negative thoughts in and around my worth as a father. Not really having, not really feeling an identity as a father, because I didn't feel I was good enough, or worthy enough to call myself a father, if that makes sense. Um, and so those those things, man, like that's some negative self-talk. There's been a whole bunch of other things, but if I use this one as the last example, um, how did I quieten those? I'll be honest, in that space as a father, feeling worthless and stuff in that space, even though I'm blessed, fortunate to have six children, my wife and I, five of them are adults now, and we just had the youngest one at home, our youngest girl. Um, that, that was challenging. So I let a lot of negative thoughts in and around the things that I felt I didn't do well, the time that I lost and where I wasn't there, the selfishness that I showed as I just pursued my military career. Once I was in the military and where I wanted to be, the selfishness that I had, and just really prioritizing my work. And my wife spoke a little bit about that with my brother-in-law in an interview, whereby I was like, I was home, but I wasn't home. Um, yeah, it was that side of things, and quietening that. Um, I didn't see anybody, or refused to go and see a counselor or anything like that, which, even though my wife encouraged me to, for me, it just got to a point where I had some time out to myself, just maintained training, because training always helped me feel good. Sometimes I would just trash myself in training, so I didn't feel that great. But mentally, I felt good as a result, and part of that was me trying to punish myself for being such a bad father, etc. Um, and yeah, it came to a point where there was no magic light. There was no, I think I went on for many, many years, um, wearing a disguise in terms of how I was doing. Didn't speak to anybody, didn't speak to any friends, or didn't reach out to anybody, even though I know I could have. Um, I chose not to, and just really took some time to take stock of, you know, who I was, who I felt like I really was. So giving a an assessment of myself, for want of a better term, and trying to. It took me a long time trying to put aside all the negative thoughts that I had about myself. Um, and when I was when I chipped away at trying to do that and really trying to find, not so much who I am, but who I wanted to be. When I started for me, um, prioritizing and focusing more on who I wanted to be, who I, wanting to try to be a good person, wanting to try to be a good father, a good husband, all that sort of stuff. When I focused on those things and what I wanted, and that changed from what I wanted to be to what I felt I needed to be, um, everything sort of shifted for me. A lot of that misery and that darkness, for want of a better term, that clouded my mind. I started to slowly but surely start to feel a little bit lighter, started to feel a little bit better about myself. And yeah, and then I don't know when it happened. I don't know if it's fully happened, but just felt a heck of a lot freer, lighter, better about myself, and able to acknowledge that I was just sending myself down into a really dark space that I didn't need to put myself into. And that dark space that I was in, that I couldn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. But when I switched and started to look at what I wanted to be, which switched to who I felt I needed to be, um, yeah, that's when things started to change. So I don't know if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't, but that's what happened for me with regards to this question, quietening those negative thoughts. I needed to do some. People might use the term soul searching. um, that's probably what I needed to do. And when I say I wore a disguise, like in and around how I was feeling, I did that for a long, 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 like probably a couple of decades. Um, yeah, probably easily, if not at least 15 years, one and a half decades, so to speak. So that, yeah, I needed to, and that's not trying to, oh yeah, I did it all myself. I think there were just probably little things that helped along the way. um, when I focused on what I wanted to try to be and who I felt I needed to be, and when I then tried to apply those things, um, it was like a little, real small win. It's like cool, but I was still carrying this other heavy burden with regards to how I felt about myself, etc. So yeah, long-winded answer on this one, eh? Bloody that verbal diarrhea, all right. Yeah, but hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if it helps anybody. I don't know if well, not I don't know. I have no doubts that there are other people out there that have got their own experiences with the dark times that they've been going through. Those are just a handful of things. YouTube, social media, not really. I haven't really encountered anything that that has caused me any thought of, oh, I can't do this, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I already knew coming in, I'm going to get no views, there's probably going to be no likes, there's going to be the content's going to be rubbish. I'm probably going to probably get no comments, and if I do get comments, I'll probably be negative ones. So I already had a list of things that um, that I thought could happen, and I didn't really have any expectations. And then it's just gone on from there. The military stuff, spoken about that, and then yeah, my lack of, what do you call it, self-worth as a parent for a long part of my life. So I don't feel like that now, but I did. So just to try to answer this question with, I suppose, three different reference points, if that makes sense. There's plenty of others, plenty of like work and employment ones that I could use as well with regards to negative thoughts. My role as an employee, or my role as a leader, or all of that sort of stuff, which may come out later on in other videos, let's say. So, how do you quieten those negative thoughts when they try to enter your mind? Really helps to have a good understanding, in my experience and summary, of knowing what it is, depending on the situation or the thing that you're going to do, of some of the negative things that could happen before you start it, and then having some counters to that before you go on. If that means putting in some physical reps, which then helps strengthen you mentally because you've put in the work, that's great for whatever that task is. If it means you're having to learn some of that stuff as you go, like the social media space, understand that there's going to be some frustrations and negative stuff that happens, and then having the resilience or the ability to try to work through that and stay persistent with it. And then if you've got some personal stuff, like whether it's parenting, whether it's relationships with family members, etc. That's another topic itself as well. And you got negative thoughts coming in to you, either been spoken to you, or you got negative thoughts coming in internally. Your internal dialogue is such that you're, you know, beating yourself up around stuff. For me, acknowledging that that's what I was doing was one thing that I needed to do, and then, okay, that's what I'm doing to myself. I know it's not good for me. What is it that I want? Who is it that I'm trying to be from a parenting perspective? And then started to focus in on that, and then started to try to manifest that or make that happen, for want of a better term, trying to be the parent, the husband that I wanted to be, or that I want to be, and still trying to be. So, anyway, that's that one. um, what's the time? Holy hecker, nearly an hour. All right. This one, after Hell Week, I recall the students had a week of light duties before going back to normal training. So I think this is in some of the. Oh yeah, this is in relation to the Navy SEALs ones that are going up, like the what's the name, uh, the Buds class 234, and the ones that were previously only available for members. Anyway, so yep, the recall the students had a week of light duties before going back to normal. Okay, how long after NZ/Australian selection do students go into? I guess do students get before going into serious training? Um, not sure. Not sure what you mean by serious training. If you mean serious training in terms of physical PT fitness, everybody's different, eh? So I think I mentioned the 1998 selection. Higgy, when he walked into the office, like that guy, apart from having lost a lot of weight, which we all lost, he, he looked bloody good to go. Marching normally, I don't think he had any sore feet. Bloody bastard. Um, he was sweet as. He's the guy that marched into the office at the end, and he was asked how it was, and how did he find it? And I think he said everything he expected. But that guy, he just looked like there was nothing wrong with him. So I think everybody's different. That's the first part. In terms of timing, it's more in NZ and for Australia as well. It's more dictated. Well, it used to be. I'm not sure how it is now in Australia, I should say. More dictated by when the cycle of training starts. So if you're talking about from when do they start the cycle and their serious training, the parachuting, the combat survival, CQB, patrol procedures, etc., etc. If you're talking about that, when does that type of serious training happen? It starts when the next cycle runs. So, as an example, I did my selection October, November 1998. We finished. We didn't start cycle until mid January 1999. So, had several weeks off to heal up and recover. I was back to doing PT maybe after a couple of weeks, maybe even more. Like for me personally, just my feet were pretty wrecked, and fat and swollen. And even once the swelling went down, still didn't feel like I had the strength or the mobility or whatever you call it in my feet themselves. Um, and it felt good to just let my body heal up and have some rest after selection, because I knew all the work that I'd put in prior to, and then went on selection, and then I knew what was coming up. So yeah, probably each individual's different. First, depends on when the cycle starts in terms of if you're talking about course training, if that's what you mean by real training. Australia was pretty similar at the time, although in Australia, we rolled straight from having done selection. Then we had roughly about the same. We had about a week off, and then we rolled into the cycle. But into cycle, it was still light tasks and jobs, because you'd just come off 21 days of a fairly hectic, um, physically demanding and mentally demanding process. So it's not like we were um, doing lots of. I don't recall us doing lots of really physically demanding courses or PT or anything like that. So we had that week rest. Then we start getting into the rhythm of what the cycle looks like, and what we would be doing sorting out some admin, sorting out some issues with regards to equipment issues or keys for the barracks and all that sort of stuff. um, yeah, and starting to get a plan together with regards to what things would look like and how things were going to shape up. So yeah, that's that part. So how long after? There's no set time. So give you another example on the NZ1, guys that might do the earlier selection in the year, whether that's February, March, or April, May, whenever it might be. If they do that selection in that part of the year and they pass, well, then they more than likely won't be on the cycle until the following year, or maybe the year after, depending on their experience in the military, that sort of thing. So, and maybe some other things. So, with regards to that, the completion of the selection before going into cycle, that part varies. If you're talking about when is the individual ready and capable to get back into serious or hard physical training, um, typically in NZ and Australia, from what I understand, that's up to the individual to say, hey, yo, I'm good to go. Some guys may have been carrying injuries before they went into selection, and then they've aggravated them and made them worse, even though they've passed selection and they're healing up now. But those injuries haven't gotten any better. If anything, they've probably added more wear and tear to them, so they may take longer. Um, Hopefully that helps, but it's going to be a case by case for the individuals. Um, Next one, what's the earliest NZ Australian SA students could physically go back into training and perform normally? Oh yeah, depends. Yeah, that's one of those how long's a piece of string type questions. Again, up to the individual, based on probably that last comment that I just made in terms of guys carrying injuries before they go in. Some guys getting them those injuries getting worse during, and then how they pull up after. Like I said, Higgy was bloody he was, as far as I could see, he was good to go the next day, bloody bastard. Um, and there may have been some other guys that felt good to go the next day. I definitely wasn't on the NZ one, and I don't think, although I felt like I was in better shape at the end of the Australian selection compared to my time having finished the NZ one, having that week off and then easing into things definitely helped me recharge. So earliest, at the end of the day, uh, if push came to shove and the guys that have passed selection had to be ready by a set date and time to be able to start work again, guys would just look to flick a switch where they can and just turn up and do the work. So if it meant we've got to run and do this PT and whatever, they would turn up and do it as well as they can. Um, Rain, hail, or shine at the end of the day. And if you're injured and if you're not up to scratch and if you come last, or if you don't pass, if it's a timed, if there's all of a sudden you finish selection and the instructors for whatever reason go, okay, 2 days time now, you guys need to pass a 3.2 and then the 20 clicker and then the 2.4 run and that again, we would probably all fail. I know I probably would have failed. Um, so maybe not all. Maybe there might have been some guys that probably would have still passed those, but a few days after, your body needs some time to heal up and recover. And I think that's partly why the Australian regiment has invested quite a bit of time with their high performance. And from what I understand, those that pass selection go to the Australian Institute of Sport or something, and they have a recovery protocol that they have these days. It's like, man, that just sounds awesome. There was nothing like that during my time, but it just it, it makes a lot of sense to me now, as from what I've heard, and that's what they're doing. These guys they're high performing soldiers, operators, and nutrition is another thing that comes in, hydration, physical performance, mental performance. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there to be able to perform in that job as well as what you can. And although those things may not have existed during my time in the unit and those before, the fact that they are invested and or haven't been investing in things like that these days is awesome, and can only, in my opinion, can only be a positive thing. I don't think they're going to, and I don't think it diminishes the selection. Selection's still the selection. It's still going to be hard and arduous, and you're not going to have all your protein shakes or your creatine or your supplements or your electrolytes or your salts and all that sort of stuff. That's that's a my take. That's a core part of what the selection requires for an individual to earn their place to get through onto the cycle. Because when you deploy on jobs, you don't get that stuff. It's unlikely that you're going to get it, and so you need to be able to function and perform and have enough drive without it. Yeah, you see plenty of people come and go on selections that look really well put together, that have been really used to strict training regimes. They train hard, they recover well, they eat well, they have all these other little bits and pieces and concoctions and potions and pills that they have to, I suppose, which they swear by, which helps them on their performance or with their performance. And they've likely got a track record to show it. So I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but selection, you don't get that. and it's different. That's it's different for anybody that's going on to selection that's used to having all those other things that I just mentioned, and you go into selection and it's stripped away, and you don't have it, and you're not allowed it. Um, the good luck is what I'll say. I don't know many. I can't think of any people that I know personally that trained that way with all those things. I'm not saying don't train that way. If it works for you, it works for you. But I personally don't know anybody that trained with all those things, got onto selection, had them all stripped away, and then um, went through. The people that I know just trained hard, just as old fashioned as it sounds, they just got on with the job. They knew the requirements of what was necessary to pass. They made sure that they could meet all those requirements. They usually had no music. Maybe from time to time, they might have had some music, but usually without, usually in their own head, usually just with water. And maybe they ate well at the end of a day, or maybe they ate well after a training session, but they weren't able to pop any hydration or anti-cramping stuff or any carbs whilst they were out training, so they could push longer, harder, etc. Maybe there's some magic and science to that, which supports that performance will be better on selection when they're able to consume some carbohydrates and some salts and stuff so that they can push longer and harder. And maybe that transfers over into selection. I just don't know anybody personally that did that. That's not what I did. That's not what the people that I know in terms of, and if they did do that, I should say they haven't. I haven't heard them say that to me when we've had chats about some of the training, exchanging ideas and thoughts around how they trained, where they trained, etc. Um, but yeah, right or wrong, that's my take on that one. Going back to, I went way off topic, didn't I? So earlier students could physically go back into training and perform normally. Up to the person, case by case. Yeah, everybody's different. Plenty of. I think somebody put a comment on one of my videos. The SAS or USF lot are made up of all shapes and sizes, and I think that was the one with Peter McAleese. I did a reaction essay as a soldier story, one of the parts that's gone up recently, and yeah, it's definitely true. This one, if Oz and NZSA students need a long time to recover after selection, preventing them from starting training soon after, would it be more ideal for there to be a selection which tests candidates harshly, but in a way which allows them to be able to continue training soon after, like UKSF selection slash the SEALs do? Yeah, no, I think NZ and Australia, like I said, they've got their way in their process of doing things. UK's got their way, the Americans have got their way, Canada will have their way, etc. Um, yeah, listening to Phil Campion when he said after the aptitude, his feet were pretty mangled up, people losing toenails and all that sort of stuff, which is no big deal in the bigger scheme of things. Like you lose enough toenails, it's like, oh yeah, another toenail than usual. I'm about to lose another one now, actually, just on my little toe. So it's all black, it's all dead underneath. It was painful at the start when I was still out walking along, and then it went numb, and now there's no pain in it, and I'm just waiting for the nail to peel off. So those things do happen. I think he did speak about there was some lighter stuff that they did before they then went into the jungle phase, etc. Some admin type stuff, some in-camp classroom theory stuff. So you're still learning, still consuming information on the UK one based on what I could hear Big Phil Campion talk about. And then they, get back into carrying a heck of a lot of weight and getting out in the jungle, which is some hard work, especially in terms of the jungle that they go into as well. So yeah, I don't think there's a more ideal way. I think the particular SF units have just found what they've found works for them and the types of candidates and the types of operators that they're looking for. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Still going. I'm just going to go through all of these because so they don't need to roll over to next week. Uh, in the stock, I recall, so documentary, I recall one or two students who tried to quit during Hell Week, but an instructor not allowing them to. Yeah, I think I vividly recall that as well because this is in regards to that 234 Buds class 234. Can't remember the name, but I think there may have been guys that were coming up or a person wanting to quit and they didn't accept it. They told them to go away and think about it, maybe, or something like that. I have received some other comments from people, and they're talking about those that go on to Navy SEALs are usually, it sounds like almost like a civilian direct entry recruitment scheme type thing, where you've got people, and I may be completely wrong, but it sounds like we got people based on the comment that I read. They've got people in the US that want to join the military, want to join Navy SEALs. They've got no military experience, and so they go in there, and that's why it's more encouraging. That's why it's more supportive. Yeah, they're getting bested. Yeah, they're getting told off, and they're being called names or whatever. But there's still the the encouragement aspect of it. There's quite a lot of it. So when the person, and I'm probably misquoted the comment that they put in there, but when the person put that comment into the video, it made a lot of sense in my head. It's like, oh, okay. From that perspective, I get it. Then that makes sense. When you're dealing with people like that don't have any military background or experience, and therefore don't have any understanding. Everything that they're learning is there and then for the first time. That makes a bit of sense to me. But carrying on with this, with the person that tried to quit, you've got here, so the instructor not allowing them to. Do you think this is a good practice to not lose guys who could be good soldiers, or should students always be allowed to quit to weed out the weak? Great question. I'll just go to this because he does go into other stuff later. Um, the Navy SEAL stuff, well, I can't speak to that. Like what they do, again, their process is their process, and it's tried, tested, and proven for them. So what works for them, and that's great. From selection and an SAS perspective, I've never once heard any instructors on an SAS selection, not in NZ, not in Australia. Now there may have been. I'm just saying I haven't come across it, and I didn't want to test it. I wasn't somebody that had that thought in my head, or I'm going to quit and see if they tell me not to. Like that was never in my thought process. So I've never seen that happen in an SAS selection for NZ or Australia. And personally, I don't think it should. If somebody says that they're going to quit, if they go to a directing staff and they say, "Staff, I want to quit. Here's my form." At most, I would likely expect a directing staff to just ask them why. Why do you want to quit? And then they give their reason. It's not for me, or I'm injured, or I'm sore, or whatever. Address each of those. If they just say it's not for them anymore, then if I were the directing staff, and I'm not sure if this is what happens these days, I assume it does, then I'll just say, okay, if it's in Australia, fill out your withdraw at own request form, sign and date, name, sign and date, and pass me a form. Um, some of the guys have already done that because they know that that's the process. You're given that briefing at the start. If you feel like it's no longer for you, for want of a better term, and you decide that you want to withdraw, fill out your withdraw at own request form, name, date, signature, see your nearest directing staff, go and report to them, hand over the form, and just advise them that you're quitting or that you want to withdraw. If somebody says that they're injured, a directing staff, their prerogative, their discretion might take the time to ask, "Do you want to see a medic?" And if they say no, well then, well then it's just a standard withdraw at own request. It's not a medical withdrawal. If they say they want to see the medic, well then that'll be left up to the medics or the doctor to make the final call and the decision. So I think they should be allowed, and I'm pretty sure that's still what happens. I can't speak for the UK selection. I don't know what they do there. And again, if the US encourage the person to stay or to think about it before they come back, then more power to them in terms of the SEAL process. I don't know if that would happen on a DevGru selection or development group selection. I don't know what they call it these days. I've forgotten. Somebody has said, and I don't know if that's what would happen on a Delta Force selection because they're dealing with typically more experienced soldiers that have gone on. And from what I understand, what little I understand, it's similar for the UKSF selection. Guys have got more time under their belt, more experience, so they're not, brand new recruits, so to speak. So yeah, I think in that environment, you let them quit, and if they go away and they reflect, and then they want to come back and they want to go again, um, that's why I've said there's been plenty of people that have quit selections in NZ and Australia, and that have been allowed to go back again. So whenever somebody tells me that they quit once on selection and that they were never allowed to go back again, and or they were told that they were never allowed to go back again, that's what the directing staff told me. I just think they're talking caca. They're making excuses because they just don't want to go back. That's my take anyway. So should be allowed to quit weed out the week. Yep, weed them out because And I've spoken about this. So that same question to weed out the weak. I was just having a look at the last part. I've spoken about this before. Not this particular question, but in terms of people quitting, the regiments, the units are smart enough to know that not everybody's ready. Not not necessarily is everybody ready to go on to serve as an operator on their, you know, that particular or that first selection that they go on. Maybe not their second selection, maybe not their third. You'd like to think that hopefully by their second or third, they're ready and they're no longer quitting selection, that they're failing. Or you'd like to think that they're not failing either, but that if they are failing, that they're failing because they failed to meet the standard, not failing because they want to withdraw every time, not come on, yeah, I want to do it. And they go, oh, no, I don't want to do it. And then go away, come back, yeah, I want to do it. And they go, oh, no, sorry, I don't want to do it again. And then go away, come back, and then do the same thing again. You'd like to think that they're not doing that because, yeah, the units will probably get pretty pissed off with candidates that are wired that way or that are doing that. But if you're, hypothetical scenario, maybe it's a real scenario for others, I don't know. But if you go on selection, yeah, I want to do it, and then you quit, you go away, reassess, go, yeah, I want to do it again, you go back and you go on selection, and maybe you don't necessarily pass, but you get removed because you were too slow on the navigation portions or you didn't complete something successfully, whatever, but you got removed, you didn't quit, then you go away and then you want to go back again. That would probably be, I suppose, easier to stomach for the unit rather than just somebody always quitting each time. Hopefully that makes sense anyway. But I do think it's necessary in the SAS anyway. To if somebody up here mentally says and is mentally clocked out, checked out, and gone, I'm done, I think it's best to let them go on that selection, and then it's up to them if they want to come back. Uh, Next, I've heard in the paras, so again, I don't know anything about the paras, of guys not being allowed to quit. Okay, that's interesting. In those cases, it seemed to work out as they had good careers. So again, I don't know anything about the paras or the UK military, um, but if I look at from a New Zealand, Australian perspective and the infantry perspective, like people in those units, and I'm not trying to say, oh, the infantry units are the same as UK paras or whatever. I don't know. They may be. I'm assuming paras are still fairly conventional, and in NZ and Australia, infantry is pretty conventional. So in those environments, my experience, the instructors are encouraging. They're not. Um, if if candidates in an infantry corps, and I assume for a para regiment, again, I don't know much about the paras, but I assume those candidates that are in there are still fairly young and inexperienced. I could be wrong. Maybe they're not. And those instructors have got a bit of time up and experience under their belt. So working with candidates in that environment, like a basic training or a core training, you're going to have instructors that I would assume would be more supportive of and or encouraging to individuals who they maybe observe or see have potential. If somebody's a complete bloody waste of oxygen, um, and it looks like that and it sounds like that and it gives you that feeling when you look at them or when they're in and around, then maybe they're not going to be so supportive. I don't know, but in that environment, it makes sense to me that instructors would be trying to encourage the candidates, trying to find out more around why it is that they want to quit, um, what it is that they think the candidate can do to help themselves, and then also what does the candidate think we can do, or the instructors, or the yeah, probably more so the instructors can do to try to help support them so that they can get through that. They may just want to quit because they have a fear of something in particular about um, that particular unit or the course or whatever, and so they may be psyching themselves out before they actually even give themselves a chance to attempt it, if that makes sense. So rather than doing that, if the instructors want to spend a little bit more time with those candidates that have signed up, that have volunteered, it could be well worth the time and investment sitting down with that person maybe and finding out why they're wanting to leave. So you know, that's without knowing the power regiment, maybe that's what they do, and maybe that's why they've had such some, or maybe that's why they've had some good success with it. But again, I don't know much about the powers. So you say they've gone on to have good careers, which is awesome. Oh, sorry, yeah, and you've got some examples. Okay, um, In those cases, it seemed to work out as they had good careers. And then you've got one of them is Dave Radband, SFSG. Is that Special Forces Support Group? SFSG. I'm not sure what that is. Um, so Dave Radband from SFSG, and who tried to quit around 5 times, but they didn't let him. He was 16, I think. Okay, yeah. I think he said this in the Dodge Hale podcast. 16, like maybe to the comment that I was making earlier, that core training aspect, like we're still pretty young then, 18, 19, although you might get some early to mid to late 20-year-olds these days in the Defence Force and NZ and Australia. But 16 is young, eh? Like super young. And so wanting to quit 5 times, um, excuse me, that age bracket, you're gonna the instructors likely already aware, likely already pretty experienced in a number of things, not only just in life but in soldiering in general. Probably already prepared. You got young 16-year-olds coming in, a large number, if not potentially nearly all of them, may feel like quitting. Oh, maybe that's not a fair assessment, but a bunch of them. They're probably prepared for a bunch of younger people, 16 years of age, even up to 18, maybe 19 years of age, that may be knocking on their door and going, corporal, sergeant, staff, sir, ma'am, I want to quit. I've had enough. And so the fact that he wasn't allowed and that he tried to quit 5 times is probably, and went on to have a good career by the sounds of things, is probably a testament, not probably, is a testament to the experience that those instructors, that those soldiers have. They probably, maybe some of them saw themselves, maybe some of them were also that 16 or 17 or 18-year-old who tried to quit 5 or 10 times, but weren't allowed to, and then learnt to realize how much they loved it, and they've gone on to have good careers as well. So all of that stuff plays a part, which is cool. You've got another example here. Another is Jamie Flynn, SFSG. So again, I don't know if SFSG is Special Forces Support Group or not. And later civilian base jumper, said in the Life or Death with Chris Ryan podcast at 18 minutes 56, said his withdrawal letter got torn up in front of him and was told to go back to his room. So again, I don't know how old he was. That doesn't sound like it's the UK SF selection. It doesn't sound like an SAS selection. I've never heard of anything like that happening. But if it was from a conventional viewpoint and a core training type thing, again, I don't know if the para regiment is, if that's a core training process or whatever it is that they go through to get there. But as I've mentioned, it makes sense that the instructors there would be more supportive, encouraging, and trying to get a deeper understanding as to why a person wants to quit in that environment. He said that moment saved him. Jamie wasn't sure why he did this, as he said he wasn't a top performer in training. So Jamie Flynn, the guy that went on to have a great career, the guy who also wanted to quit, has said that he wasn't sure why the instructor, I'm assuming is what he means, why the instructor did this, because he wasn't a top performer in training. You don't need to be a top performer in your training, not on basic, not on core training, not on selection. My personal take, I don't even think you need to be a top performer on cycle in NZ or Australia. You need to be consistent and you need to hit the minimum standard as the minimum. But I 100% know without a doubt that I was not a top performer on the New Zealand cycle, nor was I a top performer on the Australian cycle. I think I did enough in both to hold my own, to reach the minimum standards, but there's no way in hell that I was a top performing soldier on cycle. Not even once I got to the regiment. So that old saying that there's always somebody bigger, faster, stronger, etc. All of that sort of stuff is true no matter where you are, and the regiment is no different. Um, C, you've got here. So this is another one of those examples. Hugh Keir, so the host of the HL podcast, great podcast if you haven't seen that, but seems like an awesome guy, experienced guy as well. It's got Hugh Keir, 3-para sniper / sergeant, said he thinks he tried to quit, but was told to F off by his sergeant. Hard case. So again, yeah, sounds like good supportive environments relevant to the context or the environment or the course or whatever it is that's taking place at that time. I would imagine, again, no expert at all with regards to the UK military or the para regiment or anything that they do there, or the Royal Marines. So maybe they do something in the Royal Marines. I don't know, with regards to encouraging, or maybe over those 32 weeks, if it's still 32 weeks, maybe if somebody wants to quit during that, maybe they just accept it without any, you know, maybe they just ask them why, and maybe they just wash their hands of it there and then. But I suspect those types of courses, much like our infantry courses and stuff here in NZ, or other trades within the military, they probably are not so quick to just accept a withdrawal, if that makes sense. So anyway, um, what do we got here? To what extent did instructors mess with students in a humorous way on NZ/Australian selection, essay selection, like the SEAL instructor playing salsa music for an officer candidate struggling on a run? I think I remember that. I can't remember the music exactly, but I remember the music playing in the run and the commentary. What was he saying? Hurry up. Oh, something repetitive anyway. I can't remember. Anyway, also, in a doc on Australian T1 SF selection, instructors found a student's online dating profile and used it to mock him. Even printed it out. Okay, that's the first I've heard of that. Must be a new one. I definitely have not seen that. Um, to what extent did instructors mess with the students? If I think of the NZ selection, my selection, I don't recall anything really. Like, no real jabs at anybody in particular or any individual. I think that's intentional because they're not looking to try to make anybody feel like they're being picked on. They want everybody to feel the stress and the uncertainty equally. So I never came across any of that. If anything, some dry humor from time to time with regards to maybe the instructions, or sarcasm with regards to instructions that they might give, and just being deadpan, no expression on their face. They'd probably have an expression on their face after, when we're out of sight, but not so much while we're there. But targeting, or singling out students, I I don't recall anybody on my selection in NZ being targeted, or targeted's not the right word. I don't think anybody was targeted. I just don't even think that's in their playbook for the directing staff on selections. Everybody's targeted, and they want, like I said, everybody to feel that stress and uncertainty, and maybe a little bit of um, fear, healthy fear for everybody, equally. So that's that part. In Australia, the only thing, I've shared this before, the only thing that they did, which I thought was humorous, I didn't think it was that funny at the time, to be honest. But they got me to sing the Australian national anthem, and oh, and they got me to do a haka. I think I spoke about that as well during the lucky dip phase. We were pretty tired by then, and one of the guys, Nick Caldwell, who I mentioned was in my group, just off his own back said, "Would you like the rest of us to? The rest are Australians. Would you like the rest of us to, stand up and support?" Or word to that effect. Anyway, as I was ready to just do it all on my own, just come mate, and yeah, and then he piped up with that, and then they all stood up. None of them knew what they were doing. They just followed me as best they could, and made noise from memory. So I thought that was pretty funny. After the haka part, yeah, like, again, you sort of, depending on time, place, circumstance with regards to doing a haka. This is just my take. I'm not matatau te reo Māori, so I'm not fluent in te reo Māori or anything. But for me, if I'm going to do a haka, I do my best to um, put myself into that space to get ready to deliver that as well as I can. So that was really no different. So I wasn't laughing or smirking or anything at that time. I was like, okay, yeah, I know what you're on about. I know what you've asked. This is the game, for want of a better term, and I'm going to deliver one as heartily as I can. And you know, massive appreciation and respect to Nick and the guys that stood up behind, and supported me in that. That gave me a boost. I'm not going to lie, even though I knew I was with a group of Australians that had no idea. Well, not no idea. They know what a haka is and they've seen one, but they didn't know the words, didn't know the actions, but they stood up anyway. And I could feel that energy, even though I made sure I stood myself right in the front, in the middle, and they sort of half moon behind me. Um, I felt, yeah, it gave me a boost to be able to stand up and do that. So, aside from the national anthem, both bloody verses too. So the second verse, which you normally don't hear in sports on the Australian national anthem, it's usually just the first verse. As far as I know, there's only two verses. So I only ever sang the two verses and having to sing that on my own. And if I got a word wrong, um, Sergeant Rotherham, or his nickname became Rotten Chops during the cycle. One of the other guys nicknamed him that. He said if I got a word wrong, then everybody would get punished. I don't think I got a word wrong. He pulled me over to the side after. Nobody got punished, but he pulled me over to the side after, and he said to me, "You know, you got a word wrong, eh?" And I was like, "No, staff. No, I'm not aware." And he goes, "Well, you did." And then he just walked away. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, "No, I didn't." So that was pretty funny in that moment. It wasn't funny having to stand out in front of the whole cohort because there's still quite a large number of candidates on the Australian selection by then. Then you've got all the directing staff standing around as well and trying to belt out and sing the Australian national anthem without the words. So I had to memorize it on our way before we got to the place where we were, and then stand up and then sing it without getting a word wrong. Uh, and being crap at singing, yeah, all of that stuff didn't help. So, um, yeah, aside from that, those two things in Australia, nothing in NZ. It's it's all pretty fair, I reckon. If one thing I would say, I hope if or I would suspect if guys go to another country, you got to learn the national anthem anyway for that other country. That they get put in a similar situation. I think I was saying to one of my mates here, is like, bro, if you get any Australians come over, make them sing the New Zealand national anthem and make them sing the Te Reo Māori version first, like they do at sports, and then the English version. That'd be the equivalent of the two verses for Australia. That's just me being spiteful and wanting to try to get them back. But do I know of any Australians wanting to come join the NZ unit? I don't. Do I know of any UK operators wanting to join the NZ unit? I don't. Not because I don't think, not because Australia or the UK, in my opinion, not because they have a lesser or low opinion of the NZ unit. Not at all. I don't think anybody does. NZ's highly regarded, no matter where I've been and no matter who you speak to. Yep, small, don't have the resources, don't have the budget. Yep, we acknowledge that. But soldiering skills wise, my opinion, my observations from my time during the cycle there, what I saw, and then seeing and knowing guys that have gone on to have great careers after, my opinion of those operators second to none. So um, take that, with a pinch of salt, for anybody that might be listening. But that's my take on there. So yeah, the dating profile one, I don't know that the units. I didn't even think the Australian unit would go that far. To be fair, so maybe that is something that they're looking at these days. The digital footprint that everybody has in these days and times. Maybe that makes it a lot easier to find stuff out about candidates and then maybe look to highlight that. But yeah, I don't know. That's my answer to that one. In terms of messing with students in a humorous way. Where are we? I'm just looking at the comments now as I come back. Might tune back in later. Kia ora, my bro. Cheers. Hey, you're welcome, bro. Happy New Year. Yeah, Christian, Happy New Year as well. Have you changed the start time or am I losing it? No, I didn't change the start time. I just started earlier because I've got some stuff to do around about 8 o'clock or 8:30. So we're going to be doing a few things. And this has already been a bloody hour and a half. So lucky I did start earlier. Uh, Thanks for the kind words with regards to how things are going for me on YouTube. I'm pleased with that. Some kind comments on there. Spending time with the dogs and sitting quiet with them works for me. They are my lifeline. That's awesome. So I think that's in relation to some of the challenges or whatever the question was in regards to quietening those negative thoughts. So that animals are awesome, eh? Music, animals, etc. Um, Jelly tip, a week in already, but happy new year. Yeah, back at you, bro. VKM underscore 23. Cheer, bro. What's your skin? Whatever. What's your skincare routine? Smooth as a Pepe's normal. Crack up. Smooth as a baby's bum, for those that might have been wondering, the Pepe's normal on here. I wish, Dave, hey, kia ora, bro. Great to see you doing well. John Smith, up to brother, watching from WA. Awesome. Hopefully the weather's usually always good there, in WA. Yeah, Carlos 247. Hello, what is your advice on leadership? How do you deal with a leader who does the minimum and not interested in the team? Man, what a great question. Having the courage to have a I see some laughing faces coming out. Having the courage to have the conversation with that leader is a really great starting point. Um, and also for so this is leadership. How do you deal? Oh yeah, so you're specifically talking about a leader who does the minimum and not interested in the team. Man, how that person got in that position of leadership in the first place is a bit of a red flag, eh? So looking at how you go to address that, I've found it's always best to try to have the conversation with the individual that you've got the issue with first, rather than I think usually a number of times, and I use this from experience without going into all the details, being fortunate to serve as a leader of a group of people at different times. There's been times where I've fallen into the trap where a person within the team has come to me, made a complaint about somebody based on their observations or their interactions, their experience, and then wanted me to go and sort it out. So I've usually gone back to, if I start with this part first, I've usually gone back to that person and just said, hey, have you had the conversation with the person? Have you gone and spoken to them directly and tried to sort this out? And they're like, oh no, I just, they'll usually come back, or they have usually come back with excuses, I'll call them. Or they just seem not interested, they're too hard to try to reach. Or they'll say, yeah, I have tried. And then I'll press that a little bit more and ask, well, what have you done? How have you tried? And then usually it comes around to that they haven't really tried. They come back to, oh yeah, well, when I said this, they just seemed to shut me off. And so therefore I didn't think it was worthwhile carrying on. So to me, that's just a bit of an excuse. In that moment, it can be a bit hard for people, I suppose, to have a conversation in and around that particular thing, whatever it is. But coming back to your original question, if it's the leader that's not setting the example, leading the way, etc., and the team member, like, go to that leader, and however you communicate with them is how you communicate with them. But just, maybe not maybe. My experience has worked out best if you approach them in a respectful manner, courteous, all that sort of thing, the stuff that we like to receive, and not just be dragged or yanked over to a particular place or say, I've got a bone to pick with you or whatever. But how you do that is up to you. Might be a case of, hey, listen, Joe, just wondering if you've got 10, 15 minutes, could I have a chat with you? I've really got something important that I'd like to share with you, or that I'd really like to get off my chest, or that I'd really like to talk to you about, or that I'd really like to get your input on because it's been affecting me. And I think, whatever those words are that you're going to find. But I think if you can come to a person um, as respectful as you can, and everybody's different, eh? Everybody's got their own approach and style of delivering messages or trying to engage in a conversation with somebody. What I might think sounds respectful and polite and humble, etc., might sound real harsh and arrogant and passive aggressive is a term that gets used commonly these days, or it might just sound flat out aggressive to some people. Um, so that can be a challenge, but the starting point in that particular, my experience, my thoughts for what it's worth, in that particular scenario is, yeah, going to that person, having a bit of a courage and saying, hey man, I'd really like to have a conversation with you if you could, if you're open to it. I've just got some stuff that's playing in my mind, and I need your help with it, or I was wondering if you could help me with it, or whatever it is. And then they might not be able to do it there and then. They might say, hey, listen, I'm busy now or whatever, but how about tomorrow, or how about later this afternoon, or how about tomorrow morning, whatever that is. And then you guys try and work out that day and time, and then you know have the conversation, lead into it from there. How you deliver those messages, what I've found is always helpful as well, aside from breaking that ice and getting to the point whereby you can have a conversation with the person, is having a list of what the issues are. So whether it's the issues with the leader and having the list, but also specific examples of what those things are that you've seen. So we've got here where the leader does the minimum and is not interested in the team. You need to have, my take, best to go in with specific examples of what those things are, where you've seen the leader, in this case, do the bare minimum, and where you've seen them not worry about the team or not take an interest in the team. If it's conversations, if it's staff meetings, if it's team meetings that have been taking place, if it's things that you've observed while just having lunch or having a snack, or just even an informal staff meeting or conversation, then it's best to have those specific examples ready to go so that you can then go, hey, and then lead into those things however you want to lead into it. Um, and I'll tell you what, it can be hard to sit there as a leader, or for anybody. You don't even need to be a leader, but it can be very, very hard for the person on the other end to sit there and listen to that. So, delivery, in my experience, is also important. Anybody can lead. Anybody like, and I say that from the military perspective because that's been my experience. Everybody's expected to step up. If the crap hits the fan, well, then you may be the next to step up and then look after your team or whatever. And I think in the environments, whether it's corporate or whatever, is no different to a degree. So in that space, when you're delivering those examples, um, not being careful, still being honest and transparent, but what's the word? Not not being too harsh, I suppose, with the delivery to the person. Because imagine if it was you doing those things and you're then having to receive them. Um, you probably wouldn't. You would probably start getting defensive. I don't know you, but I'm just thinking more probably for myself. I may start getting defensive and putting up barriers if somebody's just spitting flames at me, so to speak, with regards to what they've seen me do and or not do. So how you deliver that is equally important, but also having that list of those specific examples to help support why it is, why your perspective or your opinion of that person is what it is. Um, what I found in those times, and I'll probably talk about this because questions have come up in and around me sharing one of those in no particular order series, how I got into the reintegration space, working with men that have been in and out of prison. So just working on chipping away at putting that one together at the moment. But coming back to that, that's probably an example that I'll share without going into all the details. Needed to have a meeting with the staff. We had about 12 or 11 staff there, like as part of that group, different roles and responsibilities. And some had issues with my leadership, with my approach, with my delivery of the messages and all that sort of thing. And so we had a good sit down. Once I was made aware of it, organized the meeting, blocked out a separate day and time, separate to our weekly meeting, and then just allowed that time. We recorded it on Teams because we had some of the team members that joined in via Teams online that weren't working, but everybody was invited so that everybody could be there. So we weren't having to repeat anything. And it turns out that there was really only one, two, three people that had their concerns, but they're still valid, right? Still genuine concerns. And the meeting went for probably about 2.5, 3 hours. But it was good because they had the opportunity to talk. That was just for them to go through, and I needed every team member to unburden themselves, for want of a better term, what their concerns were, what their challenges were, what they felt was good, bad, what we needed to stop doing, continue doing, what I was doing wrong, etc. Because that was how it sort of came about. And I thought it was the whole team because that's what I had been told by um, one of the people that had the courage to come speak with me, that everybody was feeling a certain way. And turns out, you know, everybody there in the meeting, the vast majority was, oh, no, that's not how I'm feeling. And then the other two that had their own concerns, some were similar, but at the same time, some of their stuff was very different. So they had that time. Thank them. They didn't have, and what I noticed was only one of them had two or three examples, specific examples. So I just used that time to be curious and ask questions. Um, and the the person that initiated it really didn't have a lot of examples, didn't have any specific examples. Um, and so that made it a bit harder. So it made it harder for me as a leader to know um, around the, oh, you're too unapproachable. That was one of the things. I was like, oh, cool. Asking for specific examples of when that's ever happened. Um, and the person couldn't give any. It changed from, oh, yeah, well, it's just the way you speak when you're speaking to us and you're letting us know what you expect and how we should be doing things. Like, I find it too hard to speak up. It's like, oh, okay. So that was the only example that they had. Long story short, it just went on and round about, and that's why the meeting went for so long, because I was genuinely trying to get some examples of what I had done wrong, who it was to, what was happening, if they knew who was there at the time, what it was in relation to, etc. Trying to get more context. So that person couldn't. One of the people could give some specific examples, and it was great. That really helped me look at and go, man, that's a really good point. Thank you for that. And so it made me be more aware of that, and it was a good point too. Um, and so I took that on board. And the example that I'll share here was in and around. So it was a iwi-led reintegration space, so a joint venture between two iwi here in Wellington, Ngāti Toa and Te Atiawa. Um, so those two iwi joint venture partnership with the Department of Corrections, or Arapota mā Aotearoa. And so coming together, working a te ao Māori approach, iwi-led kaupapa Māori. So I'm, like I said, I'm not matataui te reo Māori, so not fluent, but small bits and pieces here and there, and been fortunate to learn a little bit more as I've gone. And with that, what I was told is a kaupapa Māori led. We want to use the resources that we have between two iwi where we can, the use of te reo Māori language, use of waiata as a form of healing and team bonding and cultural expression, etc., carving, a whole bunch of other things, not just all fully Māori focused, but non-Māori activities and all that sort of stuff as well. But I was told that was a big part of it. So anyway, I was going all in and thought that the team was part of the same mindset. We're going all in on this. This is part of what this kaupapa is. We had non-Maori staff as well as Maori staff, as well as, yeah. So when I say non-Maori, I'm talking European and Samoan Islander, Pacific Islander. Some similarities you might say, but yeah, even though it was a kaupapa Maori led, it wasn't just for Maori staff. It wasn't just for Maori tāne that have been in and out of prison. So it was open to non-Maori and Maori alike. But with the kaupapa being what it was and what I had been told, we emphasised that. So there was waiata on Fridays. We did start our days and end our days with karakia or prayer. We did have courses that had a Te Ao Māori worldview lens put on them, whether it was around violence prevention, both kaupapa Māori and non-Māori programs, whether it was the use of taiaha, maurako, doing diving, going out and doing diving, incorporating cultural aspects from a Te Ao Māori perspective as well as non-Māori, and guys getting their tickets, so using tanks and all that sort of stuff. There's a whole bunch of things that were being used: literacy and numeracy, computer skills, employment prep, etc., health and wellness. And so with all of those things, there was an expectation. I was like, well, we can't be a kaupapa Māori service asking the tāne, like expressing the benefits of learning te reo Māori, doing all these other things with regards to what the whare had to offer, if we're not going to do it as staff. Like, I'm not fluent in te reo Māori, but we can't expect these men to come in, be whakamau or embarrassed about not being able to pronounce certain words properly or not being able to speak, if we're not willing to be uncomfortable ourselves and learn alongside them. So that's what we did, and that's what the kaupapa was, and that's what we were pushing. And so when it got to that, I probably pushed it a bit too hard, and this was the example that this person brought up and said, oh, I would hate to think that, because with the te reo Māori aspect and it being a kaupapa Māori, anybody wanting to come in needed to be willing to learn. You didn't need to be fluent. There was no certificate at the end, but you needed to be willing to try to learn te reo Māori and speak it where you could and incorporate it as best you can in your own way. If your pronunciation is a bit off, so what? Who cares? My pronunciation is off with regards to non-Māori words, etc. So no big deal. But as long as we were making an effort and trying, and I had made it, I said, yeah, we're all doing it. So this is what we're all going to do. And some of this particular staff had mentioned, I think from what I'd heard, the staff said that they were all good with it, but this particular staff really raised a good point. Said, "Oh, when you said that, their heart sank a little bit, because this person is fluent. They are matataui te reo Māori, and they were instructing and teaching and kind enough to do that. But they shared something which stayed with me and said, "Oh man, like, I understand where you're coming from, but I would feel really sad if my language is being forced onto others that don't want to learn it. And that really hit like a ton of bricks when that person shared that with me, because it's like, man, you're right. You're 100% right. Like, this is what, so we switched, long story short, even though I haven't made it short, we switched the direction and let those that would be coming into the whare know that there would be an expectation that we would be willing to try to learn, but it will never be forced. So because of that person having the courage to have the conversation, provide me with that specific example, and my mind cast back. I don't remember the day or date or time, but I remember that meeting, and I remember stating that this is what we're all going to do. And I made it clear I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to struggle with it as well, but I need to turn up and do it. This is when we're doing, etc. It really, really hit home. And so we pivoted and changed how we delivered our expectations and our communication to those that wanted to come to the whare. So that was really helpful. Coming back, I haven't forgotten about your question. I suppose in summary, person needs to have the courage to have the conversation with that leader, how they deliver, have specific examples of the things that they want to talk about, and how they deliver their um, their observations, their opinions around what they're seeing. Person doing the bare minimum in this case, person not being interested in the team. How you deliver that, how the person delivers that is going to be really important if that team and if that leader is going to have any chance of being receptive to receiving the information first, and then if that leader is going to have any chance of taking the step to acknowledge and then try to do better, and or bring the team in together and go through it. So yeah, my that first meeting was just me listening to everything that was shared. I called us. We had about 4 days off in between, maybe a week off, but they already knew. And I said, "Oh, would everybody mind if we come back and have a follow up meeting to that?" Because it's all well and good for them to have their say and go through. Um, I asked, I'll sit here, listen for as long as it takes. Is it all right if we come back in a few days' time, and then I'd like to share a few things as well, because there'll probably be some things that will come up that I can then respond to, which they were kind and gracious enough to do. So we did. And yeah, I made sure I went into that meeting. I'd taken notes. I'd heard what they had said and what they were bringing up, and then I had a massive list of specific examples. Almost had dates and times for a lot of them, and addressed the points that the three had brought up. And then everything just was nice and light. Excuse me. And yeah, I still miss it. Had some other reasons for needing to resign. So I chose to resign 20th of December 2024. So just before the new year, for some personal stuff, nothing to do with the whare. It was going really well, and it's still going well now. I keep a very, very long arms distance in contact with some of the staff in that there, because I don't want to, yeah, I'm not there to try to interfere. So it's more just how they're doing and catching up. And then I just got invited to one of the team members that was there when I was there, who's resigned, and he's got his farewell on the 23rd on Friday. So he's invited me along. The service manager that's there, who I know well, he was my assistant service manager when I was there. Yeah, they've just been kind and keeping in touch with me. So definitely left on good terms, even though it was sad and the circumstances weren't ideal. But it is what it is. Put your family first and do what it is that you feel is best for you. So yeah, well, I don't know if that helps, bro, but that's my 2 cents on that. It's probably more than 2 cents, with the amount of time I bloody rambled on for. G'day, Joe. How did you train trainability, especially on the SAS, where you are taught new skill sets only to be accessed? Oh, yeah, only to be accessed later on the course, lone warrior phase. Oh, you mean assessed whilst under fatigue? Um, how did you train trainability, bro? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure if so. This is from Zach SOS 5533. Um, training trainability. I think a lot of that, for me, my experience come from my upbringing, um, through schooling, through work, doing different jobs, mostly labor jobs, but through all of that, even right up to where I am now, you need to have a level of trainability. You need to be trainable if you want to progress and do the things that you want to do, I suppose. So with regards to that, there wasn't any specific course that I did in terms of trainability, Zach. That just came with an understanding that if you want to be there in the unit, um, what was it they say? The matua wi, wiramu wehi. Um, one of he would take our waiata Fridays at the whare, what I was just talking about, but he'd always be talking to us um, in English, but also in te reo Māori as well, and getting us to, what do you say? E rua ngā taringa, e rua ngā karu, ko tahi te waha, kātea te waha, he taonga te whakarongo me te titiro. So, words to the effect of, we've got two ears, we've got two eyes, we've got one mouth, um, to close our mouth and just use our ears, or it's a treasure to look and listen and just take in the information. And so I may have butchered the words that and the way in which he shared it, but it's always stayed with me, even though it's been over a year now since I've been at the whare, apart from a couple of little trips in and out to see them. But that I think having that mindset and approach, it resonates because when he shared that, it just took me back to the military. I was like, my eyes were like saucers, like just a deer in the headlights, wide open eyes, ears switched on. You close your mouth and you look and you listen and you take in the information and then you apply what it is that they've given you. And regardless of whether you're fatigued or regardless of whether it's been over a year or not and you haven't been there, if you've been doing that in that time, you'll remember the information and the tasks, to what you're talking about before you then go out later on the lone warrior phase. Like, the tasks weren't super complicated. The tasks that they were teaching you, filling a sandbag and then making a fighting bay or sanger out of the sandbags, where to put those up on top of a unimog, having those explanations and demonstrations, doing waterproofing of our kit before a water crossing that wasn't complicated. PT, I remember one of the stands navigated to a point, and then there was a punching bag tied and taped to a tree, and the PTI making us smash that for reps, and then doing push-ups in between, and star jumps, and a whole bunch of other things, burpees and things in between. Like those, that's just a case of close your mouth, listen to the instruction, and then do what you're told. Lone Warrior, they might have some other, maybe there's some slightly more complicated stuff these days. There was some weapon handling and stoppage drills and all that sort of stuff, again, under fatigue. But I say they weren't complicated because they were drills that we had already been doing as an infantryman, as an infantry soldier, prior to selection in NZ and in Australia, before I got there. So that aspect, trainability, close the mouth, keep the eyes open, and use the ears. And for selection and cycle, do what the instructors are asking you to do, and try to do it the way that they're telling you to do it as best you can. The other part, which I'll mention, which I don't think gets mentioned enough, um, for selection or cycle, is that you got different instructors, different personalities, different ways of doing things. And so that is another aspect which can not trip people up, but it can play too much in people's minds, where they go, oh, what about, certain instructors like you to do things this way, and then this instructor likes you to do things that way. Like, what do you do? It's like, what do you think you do, bro? You do what that instructor wants you to do, the way that they've told you to do it. When you're with this instructor, you do it the way that they've asked you to do it. It's not rocket science. Um, and that's how I approached it. That's what I did. When you get into the unit after, you are likely going to find other ways again of your now patrol commander and how they like to do things with different tasks, with different activities. So room combat, CQB is one of those things. Being out in the jungle is one of those things. Um, there's a whole bunch of tasks that it never ends. And then I think during my time as an operator, you find what works for you. Same way you find where and how you like to have your kit. Same way you find how you like to shoot. Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. And then as you go and progress, you'll still learn more. And some ways will be better than others. And then sometimes it might take you a bit of time to readjust and change how you've been doing things, because you've identified that there's a better way and it's been explained to you that it's a better way. It looks better. but because you've got so many reps and repetitions of doing things a certain way, it might take me a little bit longer to adjust to get it how they, but also how I want to do it now, if that makes sense. So trainability, keep that open mind uh, in terms of what you're going into. Close the mouth and just pay attention. Phil Campion talks about it like it's monkey see, monkey do. When he talks about it on the jungle phase, like you can't go wrong. You do what they tell you to do, and you'll be fine. You do it as well as you can, the way that they've described it, explained it, demonstrated it, and you'll demonstrate your ability to be trained. You'll demonstrate your ability to take on the information and apply what it is that you've been taught, even though you're fatigued. That's just part of the package. So yeah, hopefully that helps with regards to that question. And then you've got another one. When I did the selection course several years ago, oh awesome! Candidates are made to participate in um, Bindoon Idol. Or was that a LOL in Bindoon? Yeah, Bindoonia during the roping adventure day. Yeah, yeah. Bindoon, good memories on there. And in Bindoon, you've got the towers and the mock up and the little city and everything like that. Great training facility. From what I understand, it's probably even better now. But I remember that between the two towers, between the sniper tower and the other tower with the stairs and the long rope being fixed in between, and then having to go across and then do a regain in the middle. Like I don't know how high we were above the ground, but it's bloody high anyway. But they did have a safety line, so we were attached by a carabiner to the line, um, so that if you did, because you're bloody, if anybody's seen those mushroom towers in Linton Camp, those for those here in NZ, how many meters would it be up? Bloody hell! So the tower stairs going up was probably maybe 6 stories, maybe more, 6 or 7 stories up. And then at the bottom of that, between those two towers, was just concrete. So going across, that's high as off the ground. So having a little short tether with a safety line, or not that short, maybe 2 meters long, the tether, or a meter and a half, something like that, to your harness as you're going across. You got to have some sort of safety line because you're pretty fatigued by by that point going along, and then remembering, oh, how did we do the regain when we were just on a low level? And then having to reach over and do that and swing the leg around and then end up on top and then pull yourself across. It's hard work. So yeah, but it's just, again, close the mouth, open the eyes, open the ears. You all right? Oh, sorry. What's that time? Oh yeah, it's coming up to 8 o'clock now. So got till 8:30, which is good. No, I don't know if that helps, bro, but that's all I've got, eh? So, but yeah, been doing lots of good memories around there. Gilly NZL, what up, Joe? Really enjoyed the No Specific Order series. Are you going to be doing a PT3? A path? Oh yeah, 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 Gilly. I will. There's heaps, eh? there's I'm just trying to do them in one lot rather than just breaking them up. There's still probably bits and pieces missing, but yeah, appreciate that. Thanks for the feedback. There has been some kind feedback on those. So yeah, what was it? I was talking about the male reintegration one, which has been some requests come through for that. Some of the other work that I did whilst in Australia, queries and questions that come up about the starting up of the Mill Gym when I did that, Australian selection and cycle, obviously that's come up. So yeah, I don't know how many parts there'll be, bro, but there'll be a few. Um, Carlos 247, thank you. Hey, you're sorry, bro. You're welcome. Gilly finished a simulated day one today. Pretty sure I'll be seeing. Oh, okay. Good work. Good work. Zach, many thanks on the trainability advice. It means a lot. I look to reapply for selection again this year. Awesome. Hey, massive respect to you. I hope everything goes well. And bro, it takes a heck of a lot of courage. Anybody that's been there, anybody that's done it, even those that haven't passed, will say the same thing. Heck of a lot of courage and respect to anybody that looks to go back after a disappointment. After a setback. Let's say, not a disappointment, after a setback. So yeah, wishing you nothing but the best, man. The unit needs good people. I had a conversation, and I don't want this, it doesn't sway me, and I don't want it to sway anybody, but I had a conversation with one of the guys that I'm lucky enough to spend some time with. He's actually preparing for the Australian selection as well. And he's watched the Bravery and Betrayal, I've spoken about that before. Um, Very, very sad in terms of how the lads were treated. I recognized a lot of the faces on that Bravery and Betrayal documentary, and he spoke about one of the lads, Burnsy, who was my OC at the time when I was in one squadron, who went on to be the CEO for the regiment. Really good guy. But I believe he was asked a question by somebody: would he recommend joining the Australian Defence Force or joining the regiment to his sons? And the guy that I'm working with said that, and I don't know this for sure because I haven't spoken with Burnsy and I wasn't there when he was asked this question, but he said that Burnsy's response was a flat out no. Um, and that says a lot to me. That said a lot when he told me that. I was surprised that he said that, but then after having seen the documentary and listening to him speak and the others that were on that documentary speak about what happened to them and how they were treated, but also the things that they were going through, things that they did, etc. I also wasn't surprised. When I say I don't want it to sway anybody, it hasn't swayed me, right? Anybody that wants to serve in the unit, in the SAS, NZ, Australia, UK, or Special Forces, otherwise, like I have nothing but respect for those units. I think it's a great place. I think if that's where you, as long as it's what you want to do, then 100% fill your boots and go for it. But just understanding that, yeah, it's not perfect. You've heard poor fellas, operators like J. Cal, who, when you watch that documentary, if you've watched it on the Sean Ryan show, has been thrown under the bus, him and his team members. And it doesn't seem like they've got the support that they could have. Heston Russell, although he wasn't in SASR, he's still in the SF in Australia in the commandos. And you've seen what's happened there. Or those, if you haven't, you just need to go and type up Heston Russell's name and you'll see the rubbish that ABC airing BS always has tried to, or airing BS constantly has tried to do in his case, and thankfully he won that defamation case with regards to him. Don't get me wrong, there's it's not perfect, the unit. There's some things that may have gone down which weren't great, and um, Ben Robert Smith and Oliver Schultz have been at, from what I've seen, have been at the forefront of that in terms of comments and things that have gone out. I've only reacted and commented on the RS that I knew. I never knew Schultzy. Well, I don't think I did anyway. But I knew RS, and you know, there's more to it than just um, one-sided media narrative with regards to what's going on. It wasn't RS that fired those rounds in the killing fields. I don't even know if that. By the sounds of things, I think they're saying that was the guy Oliver Schultz. So that definitely didn't look great. I put my reaction on there. Those reaction videos are still showing, but for some reason, my reaction videos to Ben Robert Smith aren't showing up. So, or they've been blocked. So by YouTube. ABC maybe contacted them and asked them to block it. Who knows? Um, yeah. So with regards to that and the unit and anybody wanting to go, hats off to you, man. Give it heaps and wishing you nothing but the best. Uh, Hey, bro, I was listening to a podcast about an ex SF Australian fella. He left after service and created his own gym. The Forge, maybe. Oh, okay. I could have sworn he name dropped you during it. Okay. The Forge. I haven't heard of the Forge. Maybe. Actually, Forge. Don't know. The only guys that I could think of would be guys like Nick Caldwell, awesome guy. Dan Cooper, another guy. He was a machine too with training, and him and his wife set up a gym and stuff as well. They're probably the only two guys that I could think of. Maybe might have name dropped me from a gym perspective. Papa Balsh. Kia ora, boss. Nice. Since we've just lost our last 28th member in Koro Bomb, what are your thoughts on that? Also, what are some ways to keep their memory and feats alive? E mihiana. Oh, yeah. Sad, with the passing of that great man. Um, Thoughts on that? It's sad, but an inevitable piece of history and something that's going to happen for all of us. That's going to come at some time. How do we keep some of the ways to keep their memory and feats alive? I think that, well, I'd like to think the ADF, I haven't really looked into it, but I'd like to think that the ADF are doing their best to try to keep those memories alive. The issuing of medals that previously weren't sanctioned or approved or something to be issued to the Māori battalion lads, which has been done. I think that might have happened still only recently, but I think it might have only happened only a few years ago. So long overdue. So little things like that. And then, yeah, I suppose the usual traditional Māori ways with whakapapa and storytelling. Um, the stories don't necessarily need to be told by those who are family, or by those who have served. Um, it might be family members that maybe do have a direct family line to that person, maybe have no desire to serve but have an interest in history. Maybe historians, it would be nice if the military did more or is doing more. But again, I can't speak with any sort of authenticity in terms of what the military is doing, and I also can't speak authentically in terms of what am I doing. What am I doing to try to keep those memories alive of our pioneers, that laid the foundation, that went towards such young ages, that many of whom lied about their age in order to get on the battlefield, to fight for their country, to fight for each other, to fight for what they believed was right, and try to stop those things that were wrong. So, what am I doing, to try to further their legacy, or maybe not further their legacy, but try to maintain their memory? And the truth is, I'm not doing anything. So maybe I need to spend some time, do some reaction videos to that sort of stuff. Maybe that could be my koha, or my contribution to a small contribution as it is, to trying to keep their memory and the things that they've done alive. So, yeah, that's just my initial thoughts right now. Thank you for that question. Sorry, his name is Nick Cordwa. Oh, yeah. And the gym is the Mill Gym. Yep, that's the one. Yeah, Nick and I founded that together, and it's still going strong. He's doing a fantastic job with it. Him and the team that they've got there. The Windy 45. Hey, brother, X1RAR. Massive respect, bro. 1RAR. Been over, that's in Townsville, right? 1RAR and 2RAR. Remember, exercise Tasman Eagle over in those neck of the woods. Bloody hot. The Windy 45 whiskey. Oh, sorry, 1R and ZR here in Linton. Sorry, whiskey company. Awesome. Appreciate you, bro. Sorry, I thought you meant 1R in terms of RAR over in Australia. I got you now. Bit slow. Light and respect, Chief. Yeah, likewise. All right. I'm going to get ready because we've got some stuff to do. That was why I started this earlier. I thought it was still only going to take 45 minutes to an hour. It's taken over 2 hours. My apologies for waffling on. For those that were kind enough to spend any time here, appreciate you all. If you did stick around this long, thank you as always for your time, for your support, for the comments, for the questions. A lot of questions in the list that I already had, but then my ramblings with the questions that I tried to answer on the side during the live this evening for us here. So appreciate you as always. Yeah, plenty of people that are still struggling, got some hard things going on in their lives at this time. You may be one of those, or there may be people that you know. Doesn't get any easier, but the message is always the same: to stay in that fight, man. Keep turning up, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and just take one day at a time. Tomorrow's a new day, and just stay in that fight. Things can do and will get better if you want them to. And just know and trust that those better days are closer than you think. They're always closer than you and I think, and the sun will shine again. So, as always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there is a big mana wave filled with my aroha and respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all. Ka kite, eh? See you later. Have an awesome weekend. All right, end.